sometimes life comes at you fast. Now, normally when I bust something, it can take months or even years for it to be exposed in all its true scammerdom. Then, in the last month, I made 2 busting videos. Now, one of those videos hit its target within the month. The other one, within a day. Now, like I say, I live in a country where over the past month or so, it's gone from being one of the least infected countries in the world to one of the most, where the coronavirus is now the second leading cause of death in the country, because infectious diseases can do that. Now, I keep a close tab on the coronavirus numbers all around the world, and I've actually been doing a coronavirus update on my second channel, the Voice of Thunder channel, and I'm going to teach you a trick so you can always spot when a new wave is about to begin. And just to show you this trick has legs. On the 20th of June, sort of mid-summery type time, I looked at the data for America and said a second wave is starting in America. And this is what it went on to look like. Then on the 9th of October, it's about 3 weeks ago now, I said another wave was starting in America. Total world cases, right? This was the outbreak in China. This is where it spread to Europe and America. This was it spreading to India, Brazil, and all that sort of crap. And I'm going to put my money now that this is the start of the winter wave. So all of this rise here at the moment is basically Europe. This is real, right? This isn't some sort of delusion thing. This is all the cases in Europe spiking. Yeah, that was then. This is what it looks like now. Now, America, oddly enough, isn't actually spiking at the moment. But, well, I'll bet you it does. Right? So my reckoning is this is going to go up like crazy. And it was about 2 weeks after that I actually brought it up on this channel when it looked like this. Now, curiously, I put that video up, debunking some more of these coronavirus conspiracy nuts, the day after the presidential debate. And that was the presidential debate where Donald Trump insisted that the United States was rounding a corner. Well, my prediction was record cases within 2 weeks. And that, in a nutshell, is why the cases of the coronavirus in the UK are currently going boom. And across Europe, they're going boom. And in America. Well, America ain't quite there yet, but I'll bet you it is in a couple of weeks. In fact, let me make a prediction for you. I'm going to make a prediction that in 2 weeks' time, America will smash its peak infection rate. That is, America would have more cases of the coronavirus than any time in the last 9 months. But I didn't expect it to happen the very next day. Yeah, that happened. The day after I put the video up, the US smashed its previous record. And in all likelihood, this is just the start. And that's always been my beef with Trump, was the scientific illiteracy. Back in the day, he pushed anti-vaxxer conspiracies, or ran a scam university. Up to now, where he's running super spreader events in the White House, or how his predictions of 15 cases soon to be down to 0 turned into over 200,000 deaths. And that's getting on for half the entire death toll of World War II, and the coronavirus hasn't even hit its peak yet. Now, for those who want to know how I made these predictions, it's simple. These curves have momentum. They will always roll up if they go unchecked. So if you see it starting to roll up, you know it's going to keep doing that until someone takes some action to try and stop it. And when they do take that action, it typically takes about 2 weeks to get to the top of the curve and about 2 weeks to come down to the sort of levels where you declared the state of emergency in the first place. Now, a state of emergency was declared in America when there were only 500 or so cases per day. America now has the best part of 100,000 cases per day. In fact, the best case scenario for America at the moment is it's going to tick through the winter on about 1,000 deaths per day. So it's about 100 odd days of winter. It's about 100,000 extra dead. At which point it kind of starts making sense counting these in millions. It's going to be about 1/3 of a million death toll in total. Worst case scenario is you're going to get some nasty synergy with the flu, which you can't really predict. After all, there is nothing to stop you getting infected with 2 viruses at the same time. And between your body trying to fight off both at the same time, it can be deadlier than either on their own. And if you get something like that, you can probably happily add a 0 onto these numbers. Like I said, up to a month or so ago, I lived in one of the least infected countries in the world, and now it's one of the most infected countries in the world, with the second leading cause of death being the coronavirus. And there's still no signs of it slowing down, but now we've started going on to, more severe lockdowns and all that sort of thing. So it's going to be about 2 weeks till we hit the top and 2 weeks till we come down the other side again. And sure, you can do your own part to stop the spread of the virus. Like when you're out and about, try not to touch as much stuff. And when you do get home, wash your hands. I'm going to infect my little finger. And we're going to infect it with the smallest touch on the graphite. The smallest of touches on the little finger, okay? So let's get him under the microscope, see what that actually looks like. Oh my word, I am infected! Okay. So I'm going to do what any sensible person would do in these circumstances. I'm going to try and brush the virus off. Okay? So let's get rid of most of it, okay? Yeah, it's starting to look more sensible. Okay, there we go. Super. So it looks fairly clean now. It might look fairly clean to the eye, but the camera don't lie. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wash that with some water. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, 6 seconds of hard scrubbing. So it's not bad, but yeah, I can see there's still lots of the really little bits and some fairly big bits as well. So that was, oh no, it's absolutely everywhere still. These, if you can see them, they're 10 times bigger than a virus particle. Or in other words, if you take one of those particles that you can see, it would be a clump of at least 100 viruses. And of course, wear a mask, because if you just happen to be a symptomless carrier, you can reduce the amount of the virus that you cough out by some 90-odd%. Now, honestly, I'm kind of doubtful that this is going to be stopped anytime soon, because even if you have a full lockdown and everyone is very diligent about it, it only takes a handful of idiots to completely undo the sacrifices being made by all the people who take it seriously. But anyway, like I was saying, when I made the prediction that that America would hit peak cases within 2 weeks, I wasn't expecting it to happen the very next day. Secondly, you'll recall that I made some busting videos about claims of life on Venus.
My original work had said, if you find phosphine on any terrestrial planet, it can only mean life. And that wasn't an outrageous claim until recently.
Well, it turns out at least 3 papers that have come out saying, no. Now, you may recall that when I first made a video on the subject, I took a hard stare at their raw data and said, nah. Now, it's got to be said that in terms of planetary spectroscopy, I'm probably not the first man you ought to be talking to about this, but this seems to be what their paper suggests, that these are their 2 data sets, right? These are the 2 data sets from which they're concluding that there's phosphine in the atmosphere. And I'm just going to switch back between these 2 data sets such that you can actually see which is the actual relevant signal in all of this. And the answer is, it's that little bit there at about 0, because it's kind of the same in both data sets. So this is what the actual caption for that figure says. A line feature is considered to be real where the dispersion, the red bar, is low. Only for the candidate pH3 feature at around 0 kilometers per second meet this criteria. I'm not entirely sure what the measurement is, but I've looked at enough noisy sets of data in my life to be intensely skeptical when someone tells me that's the important signal. Cool, so this is no statistically significant detection of phosphine on the Venus data. And in their paper, they come out with this beautiful clean signal, which doesn't really look anything like the data that I just showed you. All of this is from exactly the same data, bear in mind. So this is what the original data looks like, going from about minus 60 to plus 60 relative velocity. And this is meant to be the signal for phosphine here in the middle. And it's like, this is why I was deeply skeptical about this. Anyway, so they do some analysis on it, and they got this beautiful clean signal in their original analysis. This is their original analysis here. And let's see if we can do this. This is reproduced in this work. So this work managed to reproduce this beautiful clear signal. So how do you do that? Well, what they did is they fitted what is called a polynomial. It's basically a wavy line to sort of subtract off the some background. So this is the original data. It's only a window in the original data. The original data goes from minus 60 to plus 60. This now goes from, it's just a window in the data from minus 40 to plus 40. And so this is the polynomial that they subtract off, and they say, it's background. And then you subtract that off the data, and this is what you're left with. Right? And that's how they reproduce the original data. So what these guys do is they say, great, let's apply that same analysis to other windows in the data. So this one goes from minus 40 to plus 40. This one goes from minus 80-ish to 0. And they do exactly the same polynomial fitting, and they subtract it off, and they get a beautiful signal again. And then they do it for another bit between 0 and plus 60, and they get a beautiful signal again, and so on and so forth. So basically, it doesn't matter where you do this polynomial fitting, you'll get a nice signal. And from that, they say that, it's all spurious signal to noise, is basically all that they're looking at. So, their conclusion from all of this is, no. That's their conclusion. But even if there were phosphine on Venus, it can originate from a whole bunch of reactions, one of which would be life. But the thing is that when they did their paper, they tried to discredit everything else except life, whereas life on Venus is the easiest one to debunk as a source of phosphine of all of these.
So far, our technique has been proving all the things that it isn't, and we've exhausted everything we've got. With our knowledge of Venus and phosphine and chemistry and geology and planetary dynamics, we cannot make phosphine in any non-biological way.
That's great. And you can't make it biologically either, because none of the molecules that you would need to make life are there. There aren't even the components that you would need to make the molecules of life there. So, sadly, that's 2 for 2 in a month. Life sometimes does indeed come at you fast. Now, the reality is the Venus stuff was just overhyped bullshit. But the coronavirus is just so sadly predictable. No one's going to take this thing seriously until someone is digging mass graves again somewhere. And even at that, I'll bet you dollars to donuts that these conspiracy nutters will be out there protesting, saying it's all staged fake mass graves. And it's just a sad reality of the human condition that you can't reason someone out of a position they didn't reason themselves into in the first place. Bear in mind that 1/3 of Americans or so think that Jesus is coming back in their lifetimes. And in one of my earliest coronavirus videos, there was this Christian guy who was just overjoyed that there were 30,000 dead Americans, because that just proves how the Bible was right in its prediction that disease exists. Yeah, sometimes being right just sucks. And it kind of does make me despair for the future, in that if you can't tackle a virus, if you can't take a virus seriously, when you can see the effect over a period of just months, then what chance do you have of tackling something like climate change, where the effects are only seen over years to decades? Well, hopeless fight or not, I'm going to be here on the Thunderfoot channel doing what I can to counter this bullshit. And much though I appreciate all the support that people give this channel through Patreon, I'm not putting this video in the Patreon supported feed, because this is more just of an update thing. The next Patreon supported video is going to be growing carrots in radioactive waste.
So this is my uranium, which you'll see is actually fairly radioactive. This is, it's getting up for 100 times background, that sort of thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plant that next to some carrots and see if it affects how they grow.
And the bizarre thing is, I still consider this a sane and balanced thing to do compared to the nutters that I've debunked in the last month.